curious about it myself, so I figured this would be a good presentation to do to find out about it. So some of you probably know more than me, but I'll do my best. Right, for those of you who have not used Mono before, Mono is an open source version of .NET. It's primarily designed for use in Unix, but it's also available in Windows and for the Mac OS. Therefore, I'm presenting today using Ubuntu, a Linux distribution. That makes sense for this product. So, just first off, I'll just show a couple of programs written using Mono. Oh, helps if I plug the mouse in. Okay, first off, this is Tomboy. It's just a simple utility for writing desktop notes. We have Banshee, which is a music player, and most importantly, Mono Develop, which is equivalent of Visual Studio for Mono. We'll come back to that one in just a moment. So first off, I'll start with the simple stuff, command line tools. For the most part, they're fairly similar to use to the ones on .NET. Tools like gacutils, SN, WordStall will be pretty much what you're familiar with already. On the second line, the compilers are just named slightly differently, but they're more or less the same. So I'll just show a little Hello World program in action. So, very basic C# program. I'm going to compile that. So we've now got an exe file, which you don't see in Unix every day really. If I try to run that, that won't actually work because it's not really a binary file. So what I have to do is run it using Mono. And you can actually take the executable and bring it across to Windows and it should still work. If you write an application for Windows Desktop, typically you use Windows Forms. There's a fair choice of which type of form environment you use in Mono, but if you're migrating a Windows application across, you're obviously going to start with Windows Forms. I've got a little demo for that. Go back to Mono Develop. I had a look at some sample programs I've got from a .NET book. I was curious to see which ones would actually work in Mono, and found a couple of good samples for that. So first off, sorry I'm not going much through the code, but obviously a bit of a time limit here. So that's just built and ran. So there's a few signs that it's from a Windows application if you look at the button style. Now we go to the Browse button. Now that window there, you'll probably notice it's a real Windows look and feel there. So for the most part it's the same, but you'll see there's a little graphical glitch going on there, some Unix style path there. That originally was written in Windows. And just something slightly different. Laptop's a little slow, we'll get there in the end. The basic program shows off .NET drawing, basic GDI drawing type routines. Yeah, very basic stuff, but save button doesn't actually work, and I think that's because it's probably trying to refer to C code or something Windowish. So if you're developing an application from scratch in Unix, you'll probably use something like GTK#. Try and say that 3 times fast if you can. All the applications I showed earlier, Tomboy, monodevelop, Banshee, they're all written in GTK Sharp. As you may have guessed, that's based on GTK+. Obviously, .NET's not .NET without some web content. I'll show what we have for that. First off, instead of ASP.NET, we have something called XSP. So I'm just going to start off with a simple XSP2 server. That's running, started off in an actual ASP type folder, so it's got something to serve. So it's serving on port 8080. So preloaded this page for speed, but obviously some very ActiveX type controls showing there, lots of little samples. Just to show one of them. This one's just a basic data binding sample. Still loading, very slow laptop. So if I change these, it will just change the text. But of course that's no use if you're going to deploy to a customer or to a website. So instead of using RAS, what you can do with Mono is use Apache and use something like Mono. So this is a page that I've loaded using Apache, so there's no 8080 up in the address bar. Some slightly different samples on this page. The most interesting, I think, is the web services demo. So this kind of web services test page should look pretty familiar to anyone who's used web services. I'm not going to say much about ADO.NET, but there's lots of providers available. I've just showed some of the popular databases on this page that it supports. Sorry, couldn't resist it. Mono doesn't copy .NET wholesale. It has a lot of its own libraries, framework extensions, sorry. This is listed a few interesting ones on this page. So we have Corba. Ziplib is for manipulating zip files and tar files. Obviously in the Unix world they care about tar files a lot. Extensions for OpenGL, LDAP, etc. And Mono doesn't copy everything in the .NET framework. It tends to avoid Microsoft specific features, so there's no Microsoft Passport support really. A few of the other items on this list. Doesn't have much in the way of enterprise services. Doesn't have cross-process transactions, COM. In terms of being able to support C++ code on the back end, it can only really cope with that, I think, if it's portable. I know it can at least support some because I can never say that word. GTK Sharp has GTK Plus on the back end, and that's all C++. And of course it doesn't support original ASP, just ASP.NET. And finally, if you're trying to bring across an application from Windows, this migration analyzer tool would be very handy. You point it at your solution file and it will look for any reasons why it's not going to be portable. And there could be quite a lot of reasons. I mean, one I mentioned earlier is the filing system between Unix and Windows is very different. There's no C:/, slashes are different, and it's got listed on that page. And just to give a quick example what a report page would look like. It's probably a bit blurry, but just to give an idea of what it's like using the migration analyzer. There we are. And just about making it on time. Oh, earlier I mentioned I borrowed some samples. I should mention I borrowed it from the book listed on this page. That's it. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them after we finish today. Thank you.